all you literary legends and luminaries. Welcome to another Throwback Thursday episode of Booksmart. Today's book is about 5 years old and is superb, one that I doubt received as much hype as it should have. It's called Mothers of Sparta, a memoir in pieces by Dawn Davies. The subtitle says it all. Her essays string together her life in a memoir format that is unique, engaging, and profound. Remember, I don't keep many books. I read this about 4 years ago, and it was a book that I had to keep. Not only did it stay with me for a long time after I read it, but it was the kind of book that I wanted my writing to emulate. I didn't just gain new perspectives on motherhood and marriage, but how to write about it, or any theme for that matter. Her essays entwine motherhood, but so much more. The fact that there isn't a central theme doesn't matter because of the way she writes. This usually irritates me, when the essays don't link to a strong theme as I think they should, but I didn't even notice in this book. Most of her chapters, or more appropriately essays, are short, yet pack a punch. The kind where you need to go back and reread it because you might have missed something or you need to take in what Davies is saying. You're not rereading it to make sense of it. You're rereading to soak in all that she throws at you so succinctly, so perfectly. She starts with Night Swim, not even 4-page longs. It will move you. Her young daughters are swimming, and the way they come up from the water prompt the author to take a picture. Sounds simple, right? That's because it is. There are so many times I'm in the middle of something relatively dull and then suddenly becomes one of those moments I want to capture. I want to write it down, but I don't have time to do so, and then it gets lost, even if I make a note to myself in that moment. Sometimes I might be able to capture a fraction of what I was thinking at the time, but mostly it's gone forever. She captures that feeling, and even though she was able to capture that moment, she ultimately has to let it go. I'm not doing any justice to it. So let me read to you how she simultaneously captures the moment, but doesn't. They slide underwater, then emerge, eyes locked on the camera lens, rippled turquoise and sky-colored water pulling them back, the expectation of the future blanking their faces, infinity circling their gaze past yours, and as you click 2 simple photos, paper fossils that will one day remind you how they once walked the earth, you realize you have taken everything for granted, your time with them. Their brief speck of time as children, the soft faces that turn to you as if you are the sun, the fact that time seems to move so slowly when in fact it is whipping past you at 1,000 miles per hour, and why you haven't flown off into space is beyond your comprehension. They will never stay yours, for they weren't yours to begin with. One day they will leave you, shoot off into the sky, and take their place in a bigger constellation. And it's your job to let it go. Let it go. Let it go. It's gone. That's what she does in all of her essays / chapters. Once you start reading, you'll want to read the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Davies' second essay is about 3 places she lived growing up, and what you immediately recognize is how she begins and ends her essays. It's beautiful. This is the magic Stephen King speaks of when it comes to reading and writing. No other memoir writer does this as perfectly as she does. And each beginning and end is vastly different, yet it's creative and effortless. The beginning drops you right into her topic, and the ending leaves you with something to think about. Davies' writing is also relatable. One essay titled Games I Play is what she thinks but doesn't say while she's at a dinner party. I do that all the time. While everyone else talks about stuff that I really have no interest in, my mind wanders to all sorts of things. Although her topics can be heavy at times, she still has this witty sense of humor that is natural. It's authentic. She's not one of those authors who force the funny parts. It's just how she relays the story. She writes of her sudden fears and panic and hypochondria that hits her after she has children. Relatable. A disastrous holiday at in-laws? Relatable. Soccer mom, which is of course relatable, although I'm very thankful my son had 0 interest in playing soccer, so I didn't have to suffer through that. Here's a piece about her divorce that shows how she writes about experiences that kind of trend on the more traumatic side. Our uncoupling was ugly in all of the ways of war, full of distrust, head games, threats, spies, broken treaties, battles, and reckon of fallout. I suppose there are other kinds of divorce, but I haven't met anyone who has had any other kind than this. Perhaps a two childless, wealthy sociopaths without the ability to emotionally attach, or two childless Buddhists with loving kindness in their hearts were to get divorced, there would be another kind of divorce, but the only kind I know makes you hurt for a long time. And what's more, you can see the people who rely on you going down with the ship through no fault of their own. Highlights of my divorce include being evicted from married student housing with 3 kids under the age of 6, moving into a broken down rental house in a shoddy neighborhood with money my father gifted me, applying for welfare and food stamps, which I was told could take months to kick in, and waiting for the assistance with the sort of pre-panic you feel when you are on the highway and you notice the car is almost on E and you have miles to go before the next exit. With the way she writes about such negative experiences, it doesn't leave you drained. Her style is lighthearted enough so that she can tackle the more trying times in life without depressing her reader, while still allowing the reader to understand how traumatic the situation is. The structures of some of her essays give a fascinating perspective to common topics like divorce. She constructs a field manual for divorce, lists the men she would have slept with, although she is currently happily married, her search for the perfect wedding dress with these sewing interludes, quotes from herself and those around her as she suffers from an autoimmune disease. But by structuring the essay into a unique format alters the reading experience and what you take from it. Her Mothers of Sparta essay is the one that will take your breath away. She has a son who almost died at birth, but the doctors were able to save him. He has several medical conditions that require surgery, and at 4 he's diagnosed with autism. In 3rd grade, he wants to kill himself. When he's 11, they find out he's killed multiple animals. A psychiatrist diagnoses him with conduct disorder. At 15, they find child porn on his computer, and the story continues. Within her horrifying experience of trying to raise her child and trying to find answers and appropriate help and support, she intermingles the way Sparta raised its boys. Everything centered around toughening them up, turning them into soldiers. The ones who couldn't hack it literally didn't survive. I don't want to spoil the story for you, but some of the questions she presents are ones that I can only imagine parents in these circumstances must be thinking. She does so honestly, guiltily, and addresses the sociopathic, her word not mine, nature of a child that is your job to raise and to parent. It will make you think. It will engage you so much that you will practice empathy. It will make you question how we as a society address such children's needs and why we aren't doing more than we are. Here's a paragraph about these mothers of Sparta. The mother would hand him, warm and soft and pliant, to the men, who would uncover them in cool air, go over his small body with their calloused hands, their sharp eyes, and assess whether the baby was healthy enough to be allowed to live, and maybe, even at that early age, his war-worthiness. They would look for weak eyes, crooked limbs, clefted lips, curved feet, or perhaps even a weak will or a weak mind. A baby who cried too much could be trouble. A baby who didn't respond enough to stimuli might be stupid. They say that if the baby did not pass the test, he was thrown into a pit where he would either die from the fall or from exposure, or be eaten by animals. Imagine the sense of duty a Spartan mother must have felt to willingly open her arms and release her infant from her breast, allow the state to manhandle him, with his eyes still milky, his dusty or bright skin, his curly or straight soft baby hair, his nose that looked like his father's, his fingerprint of a smell still warm from the womb, to be condemned to death without understanding, a death without having a life. Imagine being the person who tossed that baby into the pit and walked away. How do you even begin to think about that? You will not be disappointed with this book. Not only does Davies tackle a wide range of topics, she also writes with ease, a fluidity that melts off the page that will shock you, sadden you, humor you, and give you pause to think. Even if you don't connect with all the essays, there will be more than enough that will resonate with you, that will percolate in your brain long after you close the book. That's all for today. At Booksmart, remember my goal is to get a little bit smarter, one book at a time.